Well, good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. And it's episode 4 of our Kitchen Reno series. So in the last episode, we laid our tiles for the backsplash at the back of the counter. And today we're going to be finishing that off by putting grout in between the tiles. The grout we've chosen to use is this one, which is quite common today. It's by a company named Mapai, and it's called Ultra Color Plus FA. This is quite a commonly found grout nowadays. A fellow at our local box store recommended it. It has a lot of advantages over the older style grouts, the sanded or unsanded grouts. And it can just be a bit difficult to use, is what I've gathered off the internet when I'm reading about it. Some people even recommend it not to be used by amateurs like ourselves or inexperienced tile layers, but others say if you follow the instructions or if you just are a little careful about certain things, then you shouldn't have too much problem. So I guess we're going to go ahead and use it. We had contemplated taking it back based on some of the stuff we were reading about it, but the main issues people have with it, it seems, is that it dries fast sometimes, almost too fast to be able to work it into the tiles properly. And the main reasons for that apparently are that if you whip it up quickly when you're mixing it with water, if you whip it up quickly with a drill and a paddle, a metal paddle stirrer stick, that can introduce a lot of air into the mix, which speeds up the drying time. And then the other thing obviously is the ambient air temperature. You don't really want to probably be doing this if it's really hot out. Now today here it's minus 13 degrees outside, and it's probably about 18 or so centigrade in the house here, or 65, 68 degrees, something like that. So it's not too hot in here. And when I mix this, I'm going to use just a stick. I'm just going to stir it manually to be safe, not to have it whipped up into too much of a frenzy when I'm mixing it. And hopefully it'll give us, typically it sounds like 10 to 15 minutes of time before you apply the first grout, and when you may want to come back and start cleaning off the tiles that you initially did. So if that's the case, that shouldn't be too bad. We've got sort of a chocolate brown color of grout to go in between these base tiles, so I'm hoping that'll look nice and sharp when it's done, if we can get it done properly. A nice dark line in between the tiles. We'll see. This bag also indicates that the ratio of water to grout material or powder is 1 to 1.1 US quarts, or 0.95 to 1 liter of water to 10 pounds. This bag is 10 pounds. So that's the ratio of water you would use if you were mixing the whole bag. Now, I'm not sure what proportion we're going to mix. We're not going to use the whole bag. I think we'll probably mix 2 or 3 pounds at first and see how that goes. So other people have commented online that in a simpler ratio of volume, you might want to mix a 1 to 3 ratio, 3 parts powder to 1 part water. So we may try that and see how it goes. That's very close to that anyhow when you calculate everything out. So for doing grout work, you're going to want some basic materials on hand. In addition to the grout, which I just showed, you're going to want a couple pails or 3 pails for clean water to constantly clean out your working materials. The main material you're going to be cleaning out are sponges. You want to have 2 or 3 of these on hand, just to always have a clean sponge when you're sponging off the grout after it's had a chance to dry initially. You have to go over the tiles a couple times, it's recommended for this kind of grout. So you would put the grout on, scrape off as much as you can prior to leaving the main area with the grout float, which are these articles here. And then wipe off the haze with the sponge at least a couple times to get it to a fairly clean look. And then in the end, after that's dried and there's still a bit of haze on the tiles, likely you want to use either paper towels or microfiber cloths to wipe down the tiles to a perfectly clean surface again, while also leaving the grout nice and clean edged inside the cracks between the tiles. So prior to actually getting grout on my float here, I thought I'd just show the motion and the intent of what we're going to be doing here once we get the grout on. So basically, I'm under the left side of the cupboards here, and I'm going to bring the float in with grout on it, usually starting up at the top, and I'll try to get the grout in all these gaps up here. I will avoid the side gap between the two walls here because that will be siliconed later, this gap running up and down here. But I fill in all these lines, usually with a 45-degree sweeping motion, filling in the gap. I won't put any in the gap at the bottom, again, because that'll be siliconed. But all these lines in here I'll fill up, keep pressing the grout into them with that side motion. And then when that has a chance to dry for however many minutes it takes for it to become stiff, then I'll sweep off as much of it as I can with the float. And then after that, we'll have to do a couple cleanings with the sponge and then the buffing cloth. So I think I'm going to use the 3-to-1 ratio mix for mixing the grout. So at this point, I'm going to mix a fairly small batch. I'm going to mix about 250 milliliters of water, which I've already added to the bucket here, which barely just covers the bottom, and a bit more. And then as far as the grout is concerned, I'll take 750 mils in a measuring cup of the grout, and then slowly add it to the water, mixing it with a mixing stick, with a paint stick basically. Another important thing to remember when you're mixing this stuff is to use a mask, because it's very finely ground powder, and if you breathe that stuff in, it can be pretty damaging to your lungs. Now obviously a short exposure to it probably isn't going to do that much to you, hopefully, but certainly if you're doing this to any degree over a period of time, then you'd certainly want to have a mask on. But I'm even going to wear it just for a short stirring here in case it gets, it's very powdery. It comes out of the bag quite easily, powdery. So I'm about to get mixing here. Okay, so I got 500 mils of powder here, and I'll put another 250 in as well. Okay, there's another 250. Now I'll start stirring. Okay, I think we've mixed it enough here. Take it up and use it. It seems a bit loose, so next time if I have to do another batch, I'll mix it a little thicker. Hopefully this is thick enough still. I don't know, I think it's too loose. It doesn't even stay on here.
All right, well then go down and put more in it and I'll clean this off.
So unfortunately our first bunch of grout was a bit watery, which made it hard applying it. I think it'll be okay in the end, but this second batch I made is more thick and it goes on a lot easier. I should have done the first batch over again, but we stuck with it and made it work, hopefully. Okay, after a bit of a battle, we've got most of the grout across the whole backsplash now. And once it dries a bit more, we'll start sweeping it down. We've done a bit of sweeping on this edge, but it's still a bit damp down here because it was a wetter grout to begin with. The second batch is drying faster as it was mixed more appropriately. Unfortunately, couldn't do a lot of filming while we were doing it. It just requires too much quick attention. So we've washed this section of the wall a couple times or 3 times with the wet sponge or damp sponge, I should say. Now I'm just going over it with the towels to buff it, get the last remaining bit of haze off the tiles. And this dark grout certainly is a little more troublesome to get off because it shows up so well on the light tile, but I think once you get it off and you have these nice crisp dark edges, I think the dark grout against the beige tile looks really sharp. Okay, we're still working here at cleaning off the tiles. This side here has yet to be done, but overall it's looking pretty good, I think. Well, there we are. The backsplash is finished. I think it looks pretty good. It was a bit of a battle for us amateurs, not really knowing exactly what we're doing. As I mentioned before, the first problem we had, I think, was the first batch of grout was a bit too watery. So it was hard to apply. And the second batch was much better. But it's tricky with the dark grouts for sure, because you have the smearing all over the lighter tiles, and it sort of makes you panic a little bit, thinking you can't get it off, because it seems like no matter how much you wipe with the sponges later, you're still getting a lot of streaking. But eventually you do get 80 or 90% of it off, and then the rest of it comes off with the final buffing with the paper towels or the or any other towels that you have. Anyhow, we like the look of it, and I think it's gonna be nice to have that. We're probably going to finish off the counter tile interface with a brown grout to match the grout in the tile. So that'll be nice. Anyhow, I think it's a big improvement. Now we just have to get the sink put in. So here's a final look at the backsplash after the final silicone has been put in at the counter wall interface as well. We just chose a dark brown silicone there to sort of match some of the darks in the granite. And we're pretty happy with the result overall, despite the troubles we had as we put it together.